Blackhawks fans, welcome in. It is season 3, episode 8 of the Four Feathers podcast. I'm your host, Jonnie. I've got Ron Luce and Tony Marchese alongside me tonight, ready to talk some Blackhawks hockey. Gentlemen, how are you guys doing tonight?
I am doing well, Johnny. It's a great day to be talking Blackhawks hockey with two of my favorite pals. I know Dennis Quaid is here in spirit, and it's going to be a great time.
Oh, that Dennis Quaid night goes back. No, I'm doing good, guys. It's always fun to talk Blackhawks hockey with the two of you, and we're gonna just have some fun and talk about our favorite hockey team in Chicago.
Yeah, exactly, guys. That's what we're here to do. Like I said, season 3, episode 8. Hope everybody had a good American Thanksgiving holiday. We have not been on the mic since then, so we are back right now. So before we get in here and do a little Blackhawks status check, that's first up on the docket. We need some housekeeping. Make sure you're visiting OnTapSportsNet.com for all Chicago sports literature and podcasting needs. Give us a follow on social media at Four Feathers Pod and at OnTapSportsNet. If you enjoy the podcast, give us a 5-star rating and review because that's cool and fucking tough. And also, if you're looking to get out of the Blackhawks game here, I know they're going to be on the road for a little bit, but there's a home game tomorrow night. Looking to get out of the Blackhawks game, go to Vivid Seats. Order over $100. You can use the code ONTAP to get $10 off. That's code ONTAP for $10 off any order over $100 on Vivid Seats. Get yourself out to UC, see some Blackhawks hockey. So, gentlemen, like I said, we're going to start here. Blackhawks status check. How are we feeling about this team right now? 9-13-2, 20 points, still 7th in the Central, 7 points out of a playoff spot. 4-4 since we last talked, so kind of some ups and downs in there. But overall, I think playing much better. How about you guys? What do you think?
Agreed. And I really think, Johnny, that they're fun to watch now. I've gotten to go to 2 games now in the Derek King era. I went when they played Pittsburgh. And then I used our friends' fun fact over at Vivid Seats to go see them the day after Thanksgiving on Black Friday. Had a blast. So, I feel pretty good about this team. They're fun. I will say I'm a little concerned. I was actually just looking into this today because I was finding inspiration for my next article. Very, very, very top-heavy scoring right now. Only really 4 players kind of carrying the load. For the most part, Seth Jones, Alex DeBrincat, Patrick Kane, and Brandon Hagel. A really nice little surprise so far, even with missing a little bit of time. So a little scared about that, but overall, they're more fun to watch. They're certainly more fun to watch than they were under Colleton. So I feel better about it now, and I'm really wishing they didn't have such an awful, awful start. They would be, they're only, 7 points out of the playoff picture, Johnny?
That's right, Ron. As we're looking at this playoff picture here, it's kind of like we're 7 points below that 4 seed, that last one that makes it in the Central Division. But all these other ones there, as soon as you get to that threshold, it's between 2 points, between like the 2nd and 6th seed there. So there is room there for the Blackhawks if they go on a run. And that's why I titled this episode. I always like to, kind of go with themes. Season 3, episode 8, ready to run. I'm ready to run. That's going to be my little Blackhawks status check here. But let's get over to Tony first here.
Yeah, guys, I think that this team is just, like Ron said, way, way, way more fun to watch than they were at the beginning of the year. This hockey season's felt really long so far, at least to me. Like, I feel like there's been a tale almost of 2 Blackhawks teams that we've watched. One, obviously, underneath Jeremy Colleton. The second one underneath Derek King. Something that I wrote a couple weeks ago, maybe the breath of fresh air that the Blackhawks needed. It certainly feels that way, at least to me, watching this team play hockey. And I know, Ron, you mentioned very top heavy, but something that we've also talked about on this show, guys. You need your scorers to show up. You need your big guns to get things done. And I'm going to add Marc-Andre Fleury as a big gun to that list as well. He's been a joy to watch in goal, just stealing a couple of games here for this team. Overall, I think the King shit is just the most impressive thing ever, Johnny. I'm just enjoying this team a lot more than I thought I was going to be, especially, week 2 weeks into the season.
Right. Good points all around there, guys. As I was getting back to kind of my ready to run thing, I agree with you guys that it is much more fun to watch. And I agree around the games that I've been to in the Derek King era, definitely more life on the ice and then be in the crowd too. I feel like I said, there's like a dark cloud that was lifted over everyone when Jeremy Collin exited and Derek King took over. And we'll get to a little bit because there's some other movement around the league, guys, that we kind of talked about in our individual chats today, but we'll get around to that towards the end of this episode. But overall here, need to go on a run here. That's what we're ready to run. We need to get a streak going. I am glad that they're playing much more competitive hockey, playing much more shutdown hockey. I think that's the biggest thing, not giving up as many rush chances here as of late, and that is turned into some success. But like I said, 4-4 since we last talked here, so it feels like one step forward, one step back. You're just kind of like staying in the same place as other teams progress throughout their schedules too, and add up points or lose games on their own. But Blackhawks right now 9.7% chance of making the playoffs. That is no, it's not the end all be all. This is via moneypuck.com. They run these things. It updates every day. It updates after every game. It's ever changing. The couple teams could lose. The Blackhawks odds could shoot up to 11 point whatever percent after tonight. Who knows? But
Jonnie, you're saying there's a chance.
Yeah, I'm saying there's a chance, and I'm saying there's a lot of hockey left to be played, Ron. I think that's more of what I'm driving at here. So, like I said, going on a run would be beneficial because we look at teams that have been down bad early. We talk about being down bad. Well, guess what? The St. Louis Blues in their Stanley Cup winning year. I hate the Blues as much as every one of you guys on this podcast, but they went on an 11-game winning streak during that season in the middle of January. So that A, it wasn't too little too late for them, and B, it can be done. But you just got to put it together. You got to go on a run. So I'm ready to run, boys.
Yeah, I love that. I'm ready to run with you too, Jonnie, and not only because of the Thanksgiving pounds that we gained, but also because this team feels like once they get fully healthy, maybe they can go on a run. Like I know, there's some stuff going on. Connor Murphy obviously has missed some time now in the last couple games. McCabe also away from the team for a little bit. They're still playing fun even without big guys missing in the lineup. Like they're still putting together wins. Obviously, the Islanders win, and we'll get to that in detail here shortly. But that's a big win. Like, sure, they had to go all the way to a shootout, just like they did against the Capitals in their victory on Thursday. But like that's 2 wins against 2 teams that, sure, the Islanders are struggling in the standings, but the Washington Capitals are the best team in the Metropolitan Division right now, guys, and they beat them in their own place. Like that gives me encouragement, Jonnie, to your point that this run could happen. They need a lot from 2 players, in my opinion, and that's 3 actually. Jonathan Toews, Kirby Dach, and Dominic Kublic. I think those 3 guys need to get going, but they've showed the top-heavy scorers can carry this team when the other guys aren't scoring. Seth Jones leads the team in points. Kane is a point behind him with obviously a few less games played. Hagel's up there, and Debrusk, I mean, having a great year already, 19 and 21, I think, for him, or 19 and 24, sorry. And 14 of those are goals. Like, he looks like the sniper shooter. I mean, he won the game I was at on Black Friday in overtime. Like, Cat looks like a superstar.
Excuse you, that's Blackhawks Friday.
Blackhawks Friday, yes, I'm sorry. But, he's a superstar now, guys. Just like we talked about, he's a superstar. Alex Debrusk is here, and he's ready to run too, I think, Jonnie. So I have hope. I think this team can play well enough to go on that run.
Alex Debrusk sprinting the marathon so far. So as far as I'm concerned, he's there. But I totally agree with you on the Kuble Doc Taves sort of front. I would throw Henrik Borgstrom in there too because I know he has the skill to do so.
Yeah.
I would tend to agree with that as well, Jonnie. He does have that skill. He's got that speed too. But I think overall, Ron, I want to get back to Alex Debrusk here. I hope, as Jonnie said, he's sprinting the marathon. I hope this doesn't fall off because I feel like that would be somewhat of a disaster for this team if you cannot get one or multiples of that group that we just talked about: Kirby Dach, Jonathan Toews, Borgstrom, Kubelik, somebody else out there going and scoring at somewhat of a rate. Because right now, guys, just watching this team, although it's been fun, if Alex Debrusk isn't scoring, there's like a problem that night, like just getting some offense going. At least it feels that way. Just a little worried about a fall off in production somewhere.
Yeah, I agree, Tony. And his shooting percentage is pretty high. And I'll get to some shooting percentage statistics regarding some other players later in here. So I agree that that is a concern if he drops off, how the Blackhawks are going to find offense. But as we mentioned, I think Ron and I both identified the parties that need to step up when it comes to that. So I think that wraps it up for our Blackhawks status check here. Let's get to one that's recent in our minds here. An interesting Isles game. This was pretty interesting, guys. Blackhawks pulled out 3-2 in a shootout here. But observations from this Sunday night showdown on the Long Island.
It's good to see Dylan Strome score. That's a guy that needs to get going in one of two ways. He either needs to get going enough to get a change of scenery, if that's something he perhaps wants, or just get going enough to be meaningful to this Blackhawks team this season. He's making $3 million. He's one of the top paid forwards because obviously they're so top heavy now at the forward position with who they pay. But he needs to step up. He needs to do something, and he needs to prove that even if it's not with the Blackhawks after the season, that he can still play in the NHL. This was a guy that we saw put up 51 points in 58 games right after he arrived after being traded, and then the following season, didn't play. Obviously, they didn't play the full season with the COVID stop, and he still had almost 40 points. At least that's nice numbers for a guy like Dylan Strome. That was my biggest takeaway because, yes, they get the win. Obviously, Patrick Kane make it nasty in the shootout. He gets the job done. He's going to get the job done. But seeing a guy like Dylan Strome pot one, especially when he's been struggling, and here, more quick King shit for you gentlemen, because now that King has taken over, he's smart enough to put a scorer in a scoring role. He's playing that second line wing, and really has a chance now to prove himself again. He lost that with Colleton because he got buried in the doghouse. Now he can thrive. He's playing next to skilled players. Maybe he gets hot, and maybe he's the guy that jumps up into that top level of scoring for this team on some type of stretch run.
Ron, I like that you say that because that is a good, sort of name that we didn't throw out there that could be like kind of like the sleeper of the supplemental scoring, as I like to call it. So I agree. It was great to see Strome there. Strome Sundays have replaced Suter Sundays. If you follow along with us during the 2021 kind of weird COVID shortened season, it was Suter Sundays because he scored his first goal and hat trick on that Sunday against Detroit early in the season, and then later it seemed to always find the back of the net on Sundays. So Strome Sundays have replaced Suter Sundays, following along with our four feather sticks here. Tony, observations from this Isles game.
Again, I wanted to just go back to Marc-Andre Fleury and just how impressive he was in net. God, I mean, I know Corey Crawford is probably one of the better goalies that we've ever watched. But I guess the Marc-Andre Fleury thing is becoming more and more real to me every time I watch this guy play. That was my biggest observation from Sunday, is just how impactful he can be in net. That and Derek King, the highlights they showed of him, I think it was coming out of the second intermission. Badass. Derek King knew how to play hockey. I wish that we were doing the show back when Derek King was in the NHL, because that guy's got the king shit, as our guy Kirk Zappa.
Yeah, king shit, the mullet there, that was great. We shared that out at Four Feathers Pod on Twitter. You can go and check it out there. That old Isles hockey card, what Tony's referring to there. I'll get into some of my takeaways from this game. You jumped out to a couple leads there, so that was good to see. But overall, and I know the Islanders aren't an attacking team by any means. In fact, they're very passive, which we'll get to in a second here. But, it was the second night in a row of Blackhawks playing fairly solid defense overall, and that's just been such a few and far between thing ever since Jeremy Colleton came to the Blackhawks.
Spot on.
That's exactly where I'm going with this. And you go and look at the rush chances. Both Ben Pope and Charlie Emiliotis, Blackhawks beat reporters, do a great job of kind of outlining some of these stats and just showing what a stark contrast it is from Colleton era to Derek King era, even though it's just very short. We're in small sample sizes, but you can look at it over a game, be like, oh, well, the Blackhawks averaged, allowing whatever it was between 10 and 12 rush attempts per game. Whereas now we're down in to the 3 to 6 range. And I know the Capitals game was a little bit of an outlier, but overall, even against a team like the New York Rangers, sure, they got a lot of offensive zone time and some solid looks. but those weren't coming off the rush. It wasn't the Blackhawks getting beaten down the ice and making some dumb plays. So that tells me, A, they're better structurally in their position, and then they're also, doing what they can to negate through the neutral zone. So that is a much, kind of desired improvement that I've seen from them, and that's something I noticed in the Isles game. Other than that, let's get into the OT period, because the Islanders just wanted to play keep away and essentially play four corners. You can't do that. So you have three on the ice, but that's essentially what they wanted to do, and it bit them in the ass, guys. I'm so glad it did, because the hockey gods were not happy with the Islanders for that kind of strategy that Barry Trotz employed.
I don't know if Barry Trotz was playing like Chell like the night before, and when you just rag the puck around until you're like you hope your opponent just quits because you're being just absolutely fucking ridiculous. It was, I don't even know what that overtime was, and Jonnie, I'm right there with you, because God forbid for some reason that strategy worked, and that's what 3-on-3 overtime hockey becomes, especially when there's a team that's got the kind of firepower that the Blackhawks do have in the 3-on-3 with Patrick Kane, Alex DeBrincat. You can even, when you get these guys going like Jonathan Taves, Kuble, like the 3-on-3 is one of my favorites there, because the Hawks are structured so well for it, at least in my opinion, just with the talent of the guys that they have on the ice with so much open space to work. You give it to a guy like Patrick Kane, it's likely going to be game over. So to wait him off the ice, sure, I think that's an interesting strategy, however you want to play it, but I'm fucking glad it backfired, because there is absolutely no way that is good for the game of hockey when you have teams ragging it around in what should be the most exciting format that hockey can be played in, which I truly believe is the 3-on-3.
Yeah, what I say, the Islanders are the only team that could possibly make 3-on-3 overtime boring, and that they did. And it was funny, guys, because after that nice victory, I had about 5 or 6 more victory beers after the final horn had sounded, and I went back to the highlights after that in a little bit more jubilant state, and I realized that they literally went to the face-off of the overtime and then cut it right to the shootout. There's no highlights from that, and that's a product of Barry Trotz of the Islanders there, but I just thought that was funny.
Well, and you mentioned too the hockey gods, right, Jonnie? And they made 3-on-3, like Tony said, to be exciting. Like you want, 2-on-1 rush chances with DeBrincat and Kane, because Seth Jones got a poke check at the blue line and sends them the other way. That's the reason the 3-on-3 was made. It was so more games ended in a hockey feel. And it's probably the best move the game ever made for its advancement in terms of popularity as a fast, high-paced, exciting sport. You can't do that. The hockey gods, like you said, really came back, bit them in the ass, and said, hey, and I remember seeing this at the AHL level when they first did 3-on-3, because nobody knew if they wanted to be super, go for it. So a lot of teams would play 2D and 1 forward, and it was boring to watch. There's a reason that doesn't work, because it'll only make hockey worse. And we want to make hockey better, because hockey is cool and fucking tough. And it's a sport that more people should be able to enjoy. And, when you got Alex DeBrincat sniping home from a Kane pass, got to see that live on Blackhawks Friday, Jonnie. It's exciting. It makes being a hockey fan fun, too, because especially with the level of skill in today's game, Nathan McKinnon, Connor McJesus, like Jonnie and I always like to joke and send highlights to each other. But these guys thrive in this format. They're good for the game. It's a way to get the most skilled players out there in public in the best situation for them to really show off and make the great game of hockey even better, guys.
Right, Ron. And, a couple of comments here. Obviously, that kind of wrapped up the overtimes. The Blackhawks did, even with that kind of weird Islanders style, the Blackhawks did have a couple of pretty damn good looks in the overtime period, despite that and the kind of limited opportunities that they had there. But they made the most of it, so they got rewarded for trying. Obviously, in the shootout, Patrick Kane, the only player to score. We put the little gif up from Four Feathers. You hear that, NY Isles? That's the sound of the only goal horn in extra time. You got to love to see that. It's always showtime in the shootout. He's just absolutely nasty. Make it nasty. It's automatic. And then other than that, Marc-Andre Fleury is still perfect in the shootouts. We do have a section for more flower power, so let's save some of the flower praise for that. We will get to that. That is built into the show. But I do have one thing, and I just want to hear how Tony reacts to this. Derek King needs to adapt a strategy that Jeremy Colliton employed. Can you guess what it is, Tony? And before you fly off the handle.
Just lay it on me.
It's Derek King needs to put Jonathan Toews out there first and then win the face-off and then let Toews go off and then bring DeBrincat on or bring Kane on, whoever you're coming off. I would guess you'd bring Kane on and start with DeBrincat, Jones, and Toews because he had said he had a quote about it, and I will say this is one of the things that Derek King didn't really make sense with me. And he said, oh, they're good enough players. They're going to retrieve the puck at some point. Well, how long is that going to be, Derek King? If that's going to be 45 seconds, like it had to be, even longer last night when the Islanders controlled the puck, those guys are already gassed, so you don't even get your first rush, and you got to go and change them up. So that's one strategy from the Jeremy Colliton area I wish Derek King would employ. But this is just me nitpicking because Blackhawks still won the game.
You're getting a little nitpicky here for me.
But this I needed to give a hat tip here on this because this is from Eric Jr. 2525 on Instagram, commented on the Four Feathers post about this, and he had said that it's something super easy to fix. Toews is top 5 in the league in faceoffs. Get him out there, win it, and if you lose it, you've got a better defender out there. So that's just my approach, and I agree with him. So I don't know. Tony, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But
yeah, no, I think that I think you're kind of right there. You want your best faceoff guy getting control of the puck for your team out there in the 3-on-3 overtime. I think it's kind of unfortunate in this regard that Toews isn't a top 3 guy that you're going to have out there on line 1 in overtime. But yes, you can easily fix this by having him take that faceoff, win the puck back, get Kane on the ice. That's completely fair. I think that at this point, though, Jonnie, if that's what we're complaining about, we've gotten ourselves to a point where things are much better than they were a fucking few months ago. And that's music to my ears. So let's be happy that we're complaining about 3-on-3 overtime hockey strategies to make the Blackhawks more efficient at winning more games. That's great. That's great news to me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I just wanted to give that first line out there to see how you'd react. So I'm glad you just kind of rolled over on that because I could have seen an explosion when it comes to king shit versus old JC. One last thing, and while we're on some king shit here, Derek King, the Snazzy Suit Magic boys, it's 2-0. Wore it in Washington, shootout winner. Wore it at the Islanders game, shootout winner. Went away from it on the game in between there against the Rangers, and they lost. We're just a regular suit. I think he's onto something when he says like it's distracting. Guys on the bench skating by the other team. You're looking at it.
Snazzy suits are cool and tough.
Sharp dressed man.
Yes. Can we get Derek King walking out onto the bench from the tunnel to sharp dressed man? Can somebody can we do that? I think that would be a good thing for home games.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think we absolutely should be part of that, along with that kind of new warm-up package of music that they got there. So, boys, that was good, though. Good to end that trip. That's a 2-1 road trip that shootout win at the Islanders brought them. I would have liked to win all 3. I was ready. I was geared up for a Saturday night game, too, against the Rangers. But you know what? On that trip, you're playing tough teams. The Rangers are surging near the top of the league. So I'll take it. And you still played decent defense against them. So let's move on past this Isles game and let's talk about some more general themes here. And the next topic on the docket is what's up with Doc? What's going on? What have you guys seen?
Tell me if I'm wrong, guys, but it almost feels like there are some times where he either looks lost or looks just defeated. Like I feel like he's lost a lot of confidence, and I think he's shown so many highlight plays in his young career that like he was feeling himself. He was feeling good. But you've looked at it lately. I remember, especially live on Blackhawks Friday, like there was a couple times when like he would go to reach for a puck, and like you could just see the desperation in his eyes. It was like puppy dog eyes, where he's just like, oh. Like, he's so defeated. And it's like he really needs the run the most because if he needs to get going, because I feel like when he's confident, he's trying to puck handle through 4 guys and, he's playing like an elite player that he certainly has the potential to be. Right now, he's playing really pedestrian. He needs to start using his size. He needs to, work on something. He needs to be rejuvenated, guys, because, quite frankly, I'm nervous. I'm nervous now sitting here, especially when Bowen Byram is balling out in Colorado. I don't want to ask that question of did the Hawks make the wrong pick at number 3? Because he was a guy that I was on record saying I wanted, when we talked before the draft. So he really needs a confidence swing because right now he looks terribly defeated, guys.
This is going to sound harsh. But I think that Kirby Dach looks really, really fucking good at doing not a lot of impactful things. He gets into the right spots and then puck jumps over the stick, or he'll skate through 3 or 4 guys and there's no finish to his game. And I've been kind of waiting to see the finish. I guess I would rather see Kirby Dach not skate through 4 guys really impressively and then lay an egg on the breakaway. And I'd rather him just be in the right spots using his size to create chaos or do something that's a little bit more impactful in front of the net that might lead to a goal. Or does lead to a goal. I want the goals. He needs to start simplifying what he's doing a little bit, at least in my opinion, and just start focusing on that finish portion of his game. He's got incredible hands. He's got the size. You can't teach size. There's so many things that he can be doing, I think, that would be a little bit more impactful than I think what he's trying to right now. And I think he's trying a little bit too hard to do those impressive things and wind up on a highlight reel versus actually trying to have that finish in his game at the moment. And Ron, you talk about somebody who can get going. Yeah, then that's when that complete package starts to put itself together. But right now he has not. I don't know, guys. Has there been a stretch of hockey where you're like, Kirby Dach is just fucking amazing?
I haven't seen Colorado, but he also scored a goal in that game. So
I know, but like that's one game. Let's talk about like a stretch of a week where we're really impressed with Kirby Dach's play. No. I don't think it's happened yet.
That's I was just going with for that. Like, you can talk about that game 1 at Colorado and be like, he was the best player on the ice for the Blackhawks, no doubt. But other than that, I agree with you.
That's the problem I have right here. And Ron, that's where those thoughts start to creep into your head. Yeah. What's going on here? Where's the development? And you look at kind of what they did with Kirby Dach, and it was kind of up right away. And you start to wonder, you had him in a system with Jeremy Colliton, right, guys, who was supposed to be here to, he was a development guy, and we're going through all this retooling, and here's this system. And now you've got Derek King, who's letting the guys play free, a little bit more free. And you still don't see it. So like, where is his game? Where is it going to go? What's the development plan with Kirby Dach? Because he was your big pick. This could be a problem. If the Hawks don't take that next step, I think some of that onus is going to be on how the Blackhawks handled Kirby Dach and Kirby Dach himself.
Yeah, I don't want to be sitting here, guys, in 2 years thinking, wow, Lucas Reichel looks like he's going to really turn out to be a very nice player. Especially for where they got him in that draft, especially when a guy like Seth Jarvis went just a couple picks ahead. And he looks so good in Carolina. But, that's where you're like, damn, if they got that right, and then they miss on the like you said, Tony, the big pick, the number 3 pick that you won out of the lottery. I remember walking home from the commuter train when I still worked in the city, watching the live stream. And I remember Minnesota's pick coming up in the Hawks spot, which meant the Hawks won a lottery spot. And I was like, yes, this is the chance they needed to find like that next guy for the next core. They kind of had that with DeBrincat already, but they needed another one. And I think we all thought it was going to be Kirby Dach. And so far it kind of hasn't, but like he's showing flashes. I mean, he's playing big minutes. He's playing like 22 minutes a night sometimes. Like, he's getting a lot of ice time. They want him to prove it. And it's like, what's going on? Like, he really needs to get it.
Is he going long-term center? That's another question that I have.
Yeah, well, I think the position is in question, but it's how effective will he be? I know you guys kind of talked big picture there, and I think there will be plenty of time to talk about Kirby Dach big picture. Did the pick work out? Obviously, we need to see more, but well, let's bring it back to right now. What's going on this season? Let me hit you with some figures and see if these do anything for you. So what's up with Dach in our section here? The first question I pose is, will he ever score again? Some underlying figures, dates behind this.
No.
He's getting plenty of looks, just hasn't been able to finish. Last goal was October 27th versus Toronto. That makes it a 17-game drought. He's 0 for 27 shooting in that range. His last point came November 20th at Edmonton. He had 2 assists that night. But going back to that figure that I dropped just before that, he's shooting just 7%. That has to turn around, right?
Right, Johnny. It really has to, because
didn't
I
one
feel
Alex DeBrincat shoot like 8% like a couple of years ago, and then everybody thought he was like
a bust. Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know. These are why I bring these things up.
No, and that's fair, and I think we all can confidently sit here and feel like he has.
I see where Johnny's trying to bait me with like some audio clip from like 2 years prior when Kirby Dach was like rattling off 50 goals or something fucking ridiculous. And I'm just be like, no, he's never going to score again. This is bait and switch.
You asked why. I'm trying to give a little context behind as to the why. And that's the lowest shooting percentage, like we saw with Cat. And there's some luck involved. I mean, the other night, and granted, part of it's placement too, but fuck, he had such a great look. All like the, top of the net open, and Georgiev makes a mask save. That could have easily gone in top shelf, and we're talking completely differently here about Kirby Dach, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. That's fair. But again, it's the finish. Kirby Dach didn't have to shoot the puck into his mask; he chose to, right, Johnny? I mean, these guys are machines. These guys are supposed to be machines.
Also, very true.
But he's just not programmed to finish.
Every once in a while, you shoot one off of that and deflects in, right? Like, it's like I said, it could be a different tone here that we're talking about. So I'm just trying to give different parameters here.
I know. I'm just trying to back this up with science and facts.
Hashtag facts.
Hashtag facts. Cold hard facts. Maybe some meatball takes thrown in there.
Per Frank's spaghetti and meatballs?
Per Frank's spaghetti and meatballs, which is exactly that. That just went right by. And I think I timed that one just a little bit off, but it's all right. We'll try again.
Always has to be per spaghetti and meatballs. But yeah, and guys, I mean, at least maybe this is my own thought really quick too on Kirby Dach this year. Like, this was also a guy I think coming in had that like, okay, like he's going to take that next step. And I kind of feel like we went through that with Cat a little bit. Like maybe they are kind of on that same path. Maybe like him playing a little more freely, he is going to be able to get him back on track too. Because we all see talent there, but yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Ron, though. There's one major difference to me with Alex DeBrincat and Kirby Dach, and that is just the goal scoring ability and pedigree coming into the league.
Very true. Good point.
That's fair. I think the one little subtle difference I would note is kind of where he played in the WHL. It's a much more defensive league. It's not as open scoring as the OHL. Nonetheless, though, totally agree, because I even think if Kirby Dach's in the OHL, he's still not putting up those same type of numbers that Cat was, just as a natural goal scorer. But he certainly has the ability to be an all-around player. Like, again, I think the really good comp that he was kind of given coming out of the draft was to O'Brien Getzlaf. We're like, yeah, he's only going to maybe give you 18 goals a year, or, 19 goals a year, or on a really good year, maybe he'll give you over 20, but he's going to rack up like 75 assists in the season as well. Like we thought he was going to be that kind of guy. And, he's starting to show this like finish. It's like, I really think they kind of misdeveloped him. And I think that's, obviously to the old regime, that's kind of their blame, because, we're sitting here and we're like, damn, like this guy has the talent to be the player. He just hasn't unlocked it yet.
I would like to see him use the size a little bit more, guys. Like, if you're not going to be on the score sheet for scoring goals, and you've got the hands, you hit somebody, get under people's skin, and maybe that's going to come with a little bit of age. But that's one thing that the Hawks have lacked for such a long time is kind of that size. And you've got it now with Seth Jones, and you've got it with Kirby Dach. And I want to see them be physical. I just want to see them be a little bit more physical. And I think Kirby Dach, especially if you're talking about an offensive player on this team who, isn't the Hawks' physicality has come from a bunch of small guys over the years. It's been Andrew Shaw. It's been Drake Kajula. It's Brandon Hagel right now. Like, Kirby Dach, if you're not going to figure out the scoring, like, be a force somewhere else. I think that's like the first place that I'm looking. Like, go be that guy. I don't know.
Right.
That's
I think you can do a mix of both too.
Yeah.
And maybe we do see a little bit of that because guess what? You guys see it. You guys see after a goal is scored just in general. Any team doesn't matter, not just the Blackhawks, but a goal is scored, the boys are buzzing is a real thing. It's a very real thing. You see a little extra pep in the step. Guess what? Kirby Doc finds Twine once here. I guarantee there's a little bit more jolt in his checks. There's a little bit more pressure to back check and lift that stick and get the pass going the other way for the cat streaking up the boards. You know what I'm saying? I legitimately think you talked about it, Ron, getting kind of like the sad, puppy eyes in that game that you were at on Blackhawks Friday. That you're not going to see that as much if he gets one and starts getting that confidence level up. It's, so wild to think about. And it's like, it's funny how this game has been, and any sport in general has been so overtaken by statistics as of late. But then the human element can almost be even a bigger factor at points there. And I legitimately think with Kirby Doc, that could be the case that we're looking at if he is able to indeed pop one in the next few games here.
Yeah, and I think tomorrow is a great opportunity, right? He was really good over the weekend, had some good looks. Maybe he translates that coming home. There might be a little more of a buzz in the building too, I feel like tomorrow. I'm actually excited. I will report back. I will be there in attendance. Very excited about it. But, if they have that buzz back in the building again, kind of, what everybody got excited about, the Madhouse on Madison and things like that, it's maybe not going to be quite there, but the buzz will start to come back, right? Like the King era, I think, has given the Blackhawks a breath of fresh air and also the fans a breath of fresh air. So, what better day than tomorrow if you're Kirby Doc? Go pot one at home right now when you're starting to play a little better as a team. Start turning around and get that momentum going, because if they go on a little bit of a run here in December, off to a great start already, maybe this conversation's a little different in the middle of January about where this team is compared to where it was, 6+ weeks ago when Colleton was still coaching. So I am challenging Kirby Doc. Score a goal tomorrow night and get me excited again about having, your jersey, because I said you were the one that should have been the pick.
Ron Luce hedging his own bets. Let's get me excited for this, Ron, because I want to drink the Kool-Aid. I do. I really want to drink the Kool-Aid. I want to be all in on this Hawks team, turning everything around. I so desperately want to watch playoff hockey. And you're talking about the Hawks going on a run. Jonnie, you've mentioned it. Sell me and tell me this team can do something really cool. Like, the Stanley Cup DVD starts with Jeremy Colleton getting fired. Like, sell me on that, because I want to be there with you.
Ooh. That's a Kool-Aid that I even want to drink. I think right now it's feeling like at least just trending toward like being a playoff team and getting in and having a chance. But I think in order to take that next step that you're kind of hinting at here, Tony, they really need more out of this depth that we all felt like they had entering the season with some of the moves they made. I think Brandon Hagel has shown out, and he's outplaying that contract. He's going to outplay that contract that he got, that 3 years with 1.5 per year. He's going to outplay that. And he's probably going to be, kind of that that second level of scoring on the team, kind of what I guess kind of at that time, you could argue a Marian Hossa was technically that that hybrid tier of top player and second line scorer, but maybe even a Marty Havlat or a Patrick Sharp, that kind of role on the team where maybe he's not the star, but he's an incredibly important player, and he's starting to show it. Those guys are doing it. DeBrincat, Kane, Jones, but imagine if Kuble goes on a little streak here and gets hot. Imagine if Jonathan Taves is able to get that first goal and maybe has turned his confidence around a little bit too. Maybe Kirby Doc, same thing. These are the guys that they're going to need to step up and be that quality depth. I think a guy that we're going to talk about here in just a few minutes has been a breath of fresh air. This fourth line has been giving some energy. I think they need more of that, with guys like Josiah Slavin and Ryan Carpenter, which, Jonnie's the president of that fan club, as we all know. Those guys to really start going a little bit too. Not saying obviously they're all going to, they got to be 30-point players, but get a timely goal here or there, especially as the holidays approach. And, you turn into the dog days of January, like give this team a little bit of that energy, because that's going to maybe get them to steal some games when that lull of the season starts in February and in January. And maybe they go on that run. Like you got to get yourself hyped up. Yeah. And I know Jonnie says,
I love getting them going.
Well, and I you know,
yeah.
like wise Johnny Nani says here, you know, never get up for the letdown, but I kind of want
Johnny's not going to be able to sell this. Johnny's not going to be able to sell this to me.
No, Tony, you want to, I agree with Ron already just highlighted it there, so I don't need to rehash it, but the depth scoring, you absolutely need it. You just need scoring from other places than just like two lines on the team and one defenseman, where that's coming from. But you want to get excited if Patrick Kane starts potting more goals, Tony. That's it. When it becomes showtime, that's where it's going to come in, because guess what? We talked about shooting percentage with Kirby Dach and how that may be affecting him. Guess what? Patrick Kane's shooting a little bit lower than he probably should be too, when you look at his, you know, where he is in scoring and expected goals in terms of finding twine. I know he's still doing plenty assist wise. He always does, but add the goals on top of that, and maybe he goes on a streak, and we've seen Patrick Kane do that. There you go, Tony. There's the sell you on that. There's the fire you up. There's the ready to run.
There it is. What it ready is. To run. There it is.
Showtime. It's ready to run.
I've got joyful Johnny here. Negative Johnny is not in sight.
That's I'm saying you could always see it, and there's been hints about it, like, oh, like could Patrick Kane go on like a goal heater here? Well, guess what? He's shown it plenty of times in the past.
I want sneaky goal benders. That's what I want.
He's still very much in the prime of his career. Sneaky goal bender is still very likely, Tony. So
I want some sneaky goal benders.
That's how I'll sell you on that. All right, let's get into we talked a lot about the offense up front here in these last couple segments here. Let's get to the back end, stopping the pucks. Marc-Andre Fleury, more flower power. I think we've had a flower power section on every segment of this podcast over the last 3 recordings. We're doing it again. More flower power. We need more cowbell. We need more flower power. That's where we're at right now, guys. This guy entering Sunday tied for second best save percentage, .936 since October 30th in all of the NHL, tied for second, and that was only topped by a ridiculous Jack Campbell performance up in Toronto. So he's been standing on his head for the greater part of 2 months now. So other than that, 7.9-0 overall, .913 save percentage, .282 goals average, 1 shutout, 2.8 point share on the team. He's 3-0 in shutouts, in shootouts too. So that is helping the record. Obviously, there stopped all 8 attempts, as we talked about earlier. He also appreciates his posts. This guy, personable guy, great goalie. Obviously, a Vezina winner last year. What do we like from Flower, Tony? I know you kind of elaborated on it a little bit early on here, but this is a section. This is the flower power section of Four Feathers.
I think he just can command the game a little bit, more than what I'm used to seeing a goaltender do. I think a great example, and Johnny, you tweeted this from the Four Feathers pod account, the aggressive Flower, where he came out of his net and he goes and makes a kind of a daring poke check. But I mean, that was calculated. You see him come out of the net and basically break up what could have been a breakaway attempt right there. And he takes a game in his own hands.
Yeah. Guys, I don't know about you. I think it's hilarious, though, when some people really freak out about that. And I get the initial freak out. But at the same time, like you said, it was calculated, and I looked at it, and it's okay, there was only one guy along the blue line on the opposite side. Flower knew what he was doing there.
Yeah, and see, there's a thing with this that's different than if Kevin Lankinen went out and did it, right? So Marc-Andre Fleury's kind of earned that right to be able to make decisions in hockey games that, I mean, you even saw him go behind the net yesterday to go grab his stick on a play that, if it was even Corey Crawford, I'd probably be nervous that you left the crease to go back there and grab the stick while the puck was still kind of at the top of the zone for a second there. He's always in the right position, even when you would expect other goaltenders to be out of position. His post-to-post movement, the way that he just commands the game is just otherworldly. Really is what it is. And we've seen a lot of good goaltenders come through Chicago. I think even just within the past few seasons, even some of our backup goaltenders have been awesome. I mean, look, Scott Foster performed like a fucking Hall of Famer for the Blackhawks. There's got to be something about putting on that goalie jersey. But guys, this is like watching a Hall of Famer just come in every single day, do his job whenever he's in the crease. the Blackhawks have a chance to win just because Marc-Andre Fleury is there. That's all you can ask for. You can't ask for more. I'm sad that we're going to have to go back to, because he's got 1 year remaining on this contract, and Lord only knows if he's going to hang him up or go somewhere else. Or, I mean, there was rumors flying around about, potential movement of Marc-Andre Fleury. I don't want to lose that, because right now that's like a security blanket. If you're a Hawks fan, Marc-Andre Fleury is your security blanket that you're wearing every time he's in net, knowing this guy can just get this shit done. And that's a good fucking feeling. That is a really good feeling when you are watching this team play and he is in net and knowing that he is going to stop most of that shit that comes his way. Penalty kill, overtime, shootout. I mean, look at Robin Lehner, couldn't fucking stop something in the shootout. There's no problem here. There's nothing to nitpick apart and be like, this isn't good. That's awesome. That's more than you can ask for as a hockey fan.
Yeah, and I think with Fleury too, it's just how refreshing is it as a Hawks fan to see a Hall of Fame goaltender. I mean, we obviously, got a lot and enjoyed a lot with Corey Crawford, but once Crow kind of started getting hurt, we had some dark days. Like the Anton Forsberg, Jeff Glass days are that was tough. That was hard to get through at times. It's just a breath of fresh air having that good of a goalie back there, because he's fun to watch. And like you said, Tony, he can just take over a game. I mean, he really kind of did that against Pittsburgh. He let up the 2 goals and they got back in it. And he's like, oh, time to shut the shit down. And then he did. And they got to the shootout and they won. He's been really, really good. And I agree with you. Yeah, he's got 1 year left. Yeah, he's, there's trade rumors. But just think about if they do go on a little bit of a run this year, and even if they just at least make the playoffs and they trend in the right direction, maybe Flower comes back for one last victory tour in Chicago next season and tries to run it back and see what happens. Yeah, is it a long shot? Maybe, but why not go for that? It scares me thinking about this team without him. I love Lankinen, don't get me wrong, but we talked about when we first jumped on tonight, Johnny, even before we started recording, I think he's perfect as that 1B, give me 35 to 40 games a year as a number 2. They still need that 1. And they don't have it in the organization right now besides for Fleury.
Yeah. Ron, I think that's a good point, and there will be plenty of time to dissect the future of the Blackhawks goalie situation here. But as we're on the Flower Power segment here, guys, I like the chaotic energy that he brings to the game. Don't get me wrong. I love the stability of a Corey Crawford. I love the calm, cool, collected Kevin that we had, at least in the early stages of last year when he really established himself as the number 1 guy when they were kind of in their rebuild, whatever the fuck you want to call it, year. But the chaotic energy, how often does a goalie become the center of attention, become the spotlight? It's really not that often. I mean, sure, you get the saves, the highlight reel ones that will bring the spotlight to him. But it's Marc-Andre Fleury's personality. It's the tap in the post after, after that game against Washington where they seemingly hit a dozen posts, and he's, thanking them too after the shootouts before he even goes and gives high fives to his teammates. I like that kind of shit. I love the aggressive goalie stuff that happened. And I will say again, Tony, that was a calculated risk and he made it fine. I know people get worried when the goalie leaves a crease there, but he also did help his team in taking away that chance, so a guy wasn't coming in flush off the wing. But I just enjoy that, and I think it does bring a spark to the team. You saw it in the belt presentation ceremony after that game against the New York Islanders. It was Seth Jones giving it off to Marc-Andre Fleury, and what did he say? Fucking right, boys. That's where I'm at with Marc-Andre Fleury. Fucking right. I'm ready to run. Let's go.
Johnny's pretty tonight. I'm really happy about it.
I know.
Looks rejuvenated. I don't know
Johnny.
What it is. Johnny's
back.
Yeah, he's the flows, the flows there, the headbands on. He's hashtag back. There's he's the farthest thing away from hangover protocol. He's in his prime right now, and he's just living it up here. He's ready to run. I haven't ran in a long fucking time.
Yeah,
Johnny's ready to run.
We're all ready to run. Let's talk about someone else who's running right now. Seth Jones on the back end doing it all. He's running, he's skating, he's scoring, he's assisting, he's doing everything, guys. This guy, I know we had a lot of doubts, and I think there are still, you can still appreciate Seth Jones for what he's doing now and despise the contract that he has because it is so mammoth over the years. And we've already been through this exercise, and that's the only reason why. We've already been through this exercise with those contracts there. But as for what Seth Jones is doing right now, let's focus on him. He leads the team with 22 points, 3 goals, 19 assists. Behind him are Kane with 21, Debrusk with 19. He's averaging, obviously, most ice time on the team, 26-10 per game, 3.1 point share, the hockey version of WAR. You want to go with that? Leads the team there. Fleury second with 2.8, Debrusk at third with 2.5. And he leads the team with 51 blocks. Now, that may be a little bit... I think he would probably be second or third if Connor Murphy or Jake McCabe were in the last couple of games. But either way, DeHaan is there at 48 with Murphy, McCabe at 47. So they're right there. But either way, this guy's doing it all. And that's the topic of the segment. Seth Jones does it all. What do we like from number 4?
I mean, when you're Popeye's son, you've got a big shoes to fill. I think that Seth Jones has been doing a really good job of filling those. There's got to be a ton of spinach that's ate in that family. There just has to be. And that's why Seth Jones is just a physical fucking specimen. And, like I said earlier, I want him to be a little bit more physical. But, man, he's just a special talent. I think, Jonnie, you had the concerns about Seth Jones' contract and everything. I mean, I kind of do, and I'll rant and rave about it in 6 years and probably be real pissed off, and we can go back and look on this day and say, at one point you said that this is a non-issue, and I'm going to say it's a non-issue right now because the Blackhawks, when this move was made, they were trying to capitalize on the Kane and Taves era a little bit, and to bring in a guy like Seth Jones, again, who eats a ton of fucking spinach, that is the cost that you have to pay is one of these contracts. And I just think that if the Hawks are going to be successful in trying to capitalize on anything for the remainder of Jonathan Taves and Patrick Kane's contract, having Seth Jones on the top 10 list of assists in the NHL is more than enough to justify what we need to do here. So, I'm a big fan of Seth Jones right now. He's got his brother here. That's pretty cool to just get to play with family in the NHL. I think that's going to go a long way to make him comfortable. I don't think a lot of people, we haven't really even talked about that. Just the fact that, and Jonnie, you wrote a great article, and that's how I found out that his dad was Popeye. Didn't know his dad was Popeye, and I didn't know that his dad was an NBA coach. That family just exudes physical specimen type people, and I think that that there's the bloodlines say these guys are going to be good. So that's what I've got on Jones.
Yeah, Seth's been incredible. He's playing like the player. I think, we were all like, yeah, he can do that. He can be that guy. And I think he's really embraced Chicago. He's a fun quote. He's very honest. I think that's a great, feature for him too. I think, in the post Taves and Kane era, this is a guy that maybe is possibly the C, you know what I mean? He's that type of presence in that locker room and on the blue line. And I mean, hell, his average time on ice is over 26 minutes in
26-10, I believe.
And on top of that, he's fourth or fifth in the NHL in time on ice. I mean, he's a workhorse, and it's cool seeing a workhorse because we were spoiled with having 2 workhorses for over a decade. And
I was going to say, is Seth Jones kind of the guy that makes you forget that Duncan Keith isn't on this team anymore?
Maybe. Yes.
Yeah. Because to me, he is.
Yes.
He was 100% the replacement that you had to bring in. Otherwise, every single Blackhawks news media outlet would be like, they're missing Duncan Keith. And you don't miss Duncan Keith right now because you have Seth Jones.
Right, Tony. I think that's a great point. And you could boil it down to a number of different things, and you could go off on a bunch of different tangents. I'll go straight up. Me, I like stuff straight to the point, strictly time on ice and the, leverage of minutes in which Seth Jones plays. That is strictly enough to replace the Duncan Keith and be like, okay, well, we're not missing him right now.
Yeah. You nailed it. I mean, there's no other way to put it. He's the number one defenseman that this team absolutely needed at this point. And I agree with you, Tony. Is it weird that I say he kind of gives me like a Brent Seabrook, Duncan Keith hybrid vibe in a lot of ways, because he's a big guy. He can play physical when you need him to, but like he's that skilled, like, workhorse, can score. You know what I mean? Like he's kind of a hybrid of them with maybe even a little more offensive prowess. I mean, he's just
I think the offensive prowess that you're hitting on there, Ron, is something that both Duncan Keith and Brent Seabrook, they both had different offensive capabilities. But I would say that Seth Jones is far more offensive minded in terms of that, and still holds his own in the defensive right. And when you slap the minutes on top of it, like, God, man, like when we were talking about the Blackhawks defense like 4 or 5 years ago, like you need somebody to like fill in this gap. It was always Seth Jones. Seth Jones is like Blackhawks fan defender porn. Like everybody has been looking for Seth Jones for so goddamn long.
Yes.
And you finally stumbled upon this guy that like even the most pissed off Blackhawks fan who posts on message boards has been looking for Seth Jones for so goddamn long. To have him is finally refreshing. I know the contract situation sets you up long-term for Ron, I'll put this into terms that you can understand, like the Jason Hayward territory. Like this is gonna bite me in the ass, but this is the guy that everybody's been asking for so long.
Tony, very, very, very good point there. I'm so glad that you brought that up because it's so true when you talk about the comments about the Blackhawks defense for the past close to half decade here. When we're looking about holes that need to be filled here. But I will also go and preface this. I know you said that Joyful Johnny is here tonight. Here's a negative Nani thing. He's able to go and do all of that because he is fast enough to do it right now. That's not going to be the case in 4 or 5 years.
Conditioning. That's going to be the problem. But I mean, again, if there's
age.
one thing, age, but I mean, Popeye's still got it. He's still hopping around out there on the court. I mean, granted, he's coaching now, but I mean, the genes are there. Let's just see if the spinach works, Johnny. That's all I've got to say.
I'm with you. Let's see.
Yeah, and we've seen it with a guy like Duncan Keith, who was able to play those type of minutes well into his late years because he was just a freak in terms of his conditioning. Can Seth Jones get to even somewhere close to that to extend it a few years? Maybe not, but
that's going to be the problem,
right? And it's
too big. Duncan Keith was compact enough to keep it all there.
Right.
Seth is too big.
Yeah, that big body.
Downfalls of the God-gifted size, right?
Yes. But I mean, let's look at Zdeno Chara. I mean, we just saw him the other day. I mean, he's still rolling around in the league.
How do you look to you?
Because
he looked great to me. He was there. He was a warm
Zdeno
body.
Chara was definitely there. He looked like he wanted to chat with the refs more than he wanted to actually play fucking hockey that night. That's what it looked like. He was out there for formalities, some handshakes, kissing babies, talking to refs, and who did he put his hand in the face of? Was that Brandon Hagel or Alex Debrusk? It was somebody. He wanted to get into it with someone. I was worried about Zdeno Chara like just tripping and falling over. Somebody having to use a help button to get him up.
Yeah. I just want to know, as we're closing out the Seth Jones segment here, where is the first Seth Jones jersey coming at, and which color will it be among this crew?
I don't know. I
think it'll be me.
It's going to be Ron.
I think it will be you too.
And it might have to be white.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of white jerseys. The only white I have is Kirby Doc, so I need to beef up. Or I take that back. My Marion Hossa jersey is also white, and it's beautiful. But it might have to be a white Seth Jones. I've also got a Marc-Andre Fleury on my to-do list as well. And I kind of want a Patrick Kane in the alternates from last year, the retro reverse.
Not the retro reverse, but I just got the alternate. It's on the way with the A patch. Let's go. So
I love that.
Wondering.
I was just saying because
that's kind of what got me on that.
I want the reverse retro one because that's the one he scored his 400th goal in. So like I feel like that's the one to get. because I have a Patrick Kane. I have an old school black Patrick Kane when they were still the gorgeous black alternates that I wish they still had.
Still got to bring those back.
Oh, they're so good. They need to be brought back 100%. If the Bulls can bring back white at home, the Blackhawks can bring back the original black jerseys because they were just gorgeous. But yeah, I think it's going to be me. White Seth Jones.
I agree. I agree, Ron. I've contemplated getting like kind of like the lower one, not like the authentic, but like the lower one of a red there. Because on the opposite of you, I have more white jerseys. So, So, all right, that wraps it up for Seth Jones Does It All segment there. Great to see him, doing what he's meant to do for that contract that he signed to here, at least in the early stages here. So hope that continues. Let's move on to other observations. Mine is just fucking crank it. Dominic Kublic has scored his first goal in 15 games that came at Washington on the power play. It is great to see number 8 back in the score column, guys. Been way too long, and I know it didn't come on the fashion that we're used to with a just fucking crank it clap bomb, but it came. He scored, so he's off the schneid. Maybe that's good vibes for Kirby Dach getting off the schneid here, but either way, quick thoughts on Dominic Kublic here. Once again, a low shooting percentage here, 7.8 on 51 shots. You gotta think that'll increase, especially with just how wicked his fucking release is on a one-timer.
Absolutely. I think he's one of the guys that will get going and is going to be a big piece of any turnaround that does happen for this team in the standings. But yeah, sometimes you just got to break that schneid, obviously with Dach kind of on that, schneid right now too. It kind of feels like these two are both hitting that, like, I guess Kublic's is technically like a junior slump because he's not a sophomore, but that same vibe of like, okay, they've hit their slump. Maybe some of that had to do with Colleton and just how the year started. And, guys
shortened year, Ron. Shortened year. I'm just going to toss that out there. Sophomore slump. Yep. Look at the shortened year. So just one quick observation I had.
No, and that's totally fair. And so maybe they both get turned around, and that's what they need. But always nice to see Dominic Kublic in the score sheet. I think he's become a player that a lot of people identify as somebody that should be here for a while and play a big role. So hopefully we'll see more just crank it goals from him. Maybe we'll get one tomorrow. That would be cool and tough, especially being in attendance. But I think he's a guy that will break that schneid now and hopefully help this team rise up the standings a little bit.
I think with Dominic Kublic, it's a matter of one thing for him, and that's positioning and finding himself in the position to just fucking crank it.
You saying you should get into the rock star zone?
I think he needs to get into the rock star zone a little bit more, Johnny. It's exactly what I'm fucking trying to say. I haven't seen him there enough. I know when he got in there the other day, he wound up putting one into the back of the net, and that's what we want to see from Dominic Kublic. Johnny, you shortened my entire segment, but that's exactly where I want to see him go, and that's exactly what I want to see him do. Just get there, man, and hopefully you've got people on the ice that can help feed you that. I want to see him with I want to see him with the right people more.
Yeah, right, Tony. And I just building on that point. I think they've shuffled up power play units, and rightfully so. When things aren't going well, you do have to change something. I agree. Definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over, not getting the same results. Yada yada yada. Go on for days about that. But Dominic Kublic has a very specific skill set. So utilize that, and you need to find a way to get him into the right circle in the middle of it, in the fucking rock star zone, Tony, so he can just fucking crank it and blast home one-timers, especially on the power play. So that's where if
that's the way to get him going.
Exactly.
That's the way to get him going.
And I like that his mentality too is I'm gonna shoot through it. Whereas other guys might get a little bit, trip up their own game and get a little passive and whatnot. No, he's like, I'm going to shoot through it. So it was good to see that. I put out a tweet from Four Feathers the other night. He had just just fucking cranked one, even though it got stopped. It was a good stop by the goaltender. I believe when they were playing the Rangers, but still, either way, the fact that he's willing to shoot through it makes me believe that he can come through. And guys, we better hope he does, because the more Dominic Kublic goals that happen, the more times we see the just fucking crank it edit from Four Feathers on the timeline.
Got to have that edit out there more often this year.
Yeah, it gives off better vibes, and we need good vibes from this team right now. I think we got some of that with some King shit, but that'll help too. Every time I refresh Twitter and just fucking crank it is being posted by the Four Feathers account.
Yeah,
so agree with you there.
just, we have some like general like outlines so we can use them for multiple players, but I just want everyone to know that the edit, when we post it, when it's just fucking crank it, that is actually an outline of Dominic Kublic. Because if you see it's a left-handed shot, it's going down, to the knee on that. It is Dominic Kublic outlined in there, although we may use it for a Brandon Hagel or whoever snipes it from the left side. But just want you to know, like, we have the Debrusk rescue. That's very obviously him, the black outline of him, but that is the just fucking crank it.
That was a piece of Schwartzy work, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. It was our guy at dr_schwa96 on Twitter. Go and follow him, our graphics guy over at Untapped Sports. All right, guys, next observation for me is Josiah Slavin is a breath of fresh air. I was talking to Ron about this individually a little bit, but seeing guys come up from the AHL and being able to make an immediate impact is very refreshing. Tony, you and I talk about this on the White Sox side all the time about who can come up and make an impact. Well, guess what? Josiah Slavin, I know he's been pretty shielded, only 12:02 ice time in the 3 games that he's played, but he's been noticeable in his limited role. He had an assist on the tying goal in his NHL debut at Washington, set up Seth Jones for that absolute rocket, wicked wrister. And then he's also, just in general, a good skater. He's a puck protector. He knows how to keep it away from defenders, which is good as a centerman. And he's not afraid to skate out of trouble instead of making an impossible outlet pass, which for me, that's the biggest thing, guys. I've seen way too many guys, and I understand sometimes you're under pressure. You do have to just get rid of it, but fuck. There's cough, Jujar Kara passing it into the fucking defenders directly, basically putting it on their tape. Josiah Slavin doesn't do that. That's why he's a breath of fresh air for me. Quick thoughts on him, and then we move on to the next one.
Yeah, I mean, just look at his assist, Jonnie, on the Jones goal and how he protects the puck. And he gets pretty deep into the zone before he tails back and looks for an oncoming, player and finds him in Seth Jones. And Jones just fucking cranks it from the top of the slot and, ties that game against the Capitals on Thursday night. So, he is really a breath of fresh air. I think his minutes will start to increase a little bit, especially if he continues to play that the way he has, even though it is a small sample size. But it's also just refreshing to seeing a guy come up from Rockford, because I feel like it's been a few years since we've really gotten that. Like, all the guys that have come in that are new, that have made a huge impact, were either guys that came, through the OHL, like Debrusk, or like Doc, who never even went back to juniors. It's nice to actually have a guy that spent some time in Rockford, albeit not much. He only joined last season during the shortened COVID year, but this is a player that was a 7th round draft pick, and he's making a big impact on the ice right now. Like, if he
Brandon Hagel was a 6th round draft pick.
He was he, or was he a 4th round draft pick?
6 by the Buffalo Sabres.
Okay. I'm curious to know if it's a 4th. I might have to Google this, but nonetheless, agreed. But like, Brandon Hagel was another great find too, and has come up from Rockford. So maybe Rockford's finally going to start developing and being the pipeline that we thought it would be. But I'm excited about him. I was excited about him when he was at Colorado College, and I thoroughly enjoy seeing him kind of take that next step forward and make it to the CHL and maybe continue to make an impact.
Derek King will be the greatest call-up from Rockford of all time. That's all I've got there.
Just Jonnie showing off that he was right.
That's just on the Buffalo Sabres pick of Brandon Hagel, 6th round from 2016. But that's another reason why you're like, why are Ron and Jonnie laughing there? Go and subscribe on Tap Sportsnet on YouTube so you can go and watch us stream live when we record some of these podcast select ones like we are tonight. We try to as much as we can, but make sure you're going and doing that. And you can follow it on Twitter too. You can go there, but comment on the YouTube page. That's where you can join the discussion. All right. Other than that, moving on from these next observations here, Ian Mitchell looking sound. I know it's extremely small sample size. I hate basing things off of just that, but based on earlier this year and last year and, kind of stuff that we've seen from him before at the NHL level, getting an increased look, 1609 time on ice versus the Rangers, 1838 versus the Islanders. They'll need him with no ETA on Connor Murphy's return right now. His poise skating ability helps him break pressure, which is, I feel like, a rare trait among the Blackhawks D-zone besides Seth Jones. I love Jake McCabe. I love Connor Murphy, but those guys are very pass first instead of skate first. So good to see Ian Mitchell do that. And, like I said, small sample size here, but he had the best defensive impact of any player, according to, was it hockeystatcards.com on Sunday night against the Islanders. So good to see Ian Mitchell back in the mix. Think he could be serviceable in the absence of Connor Murphy, or do we think he's going to regress back to what he was before?
I think okay, go ahead, Ron. I'll give my spiel next.
No, it was just I think he's a guy that now that they're letting him just go down to Rockford and develop is thriving on that. I think he's a very talented defenseman. You saw it when he was in college at Denver. Like, this is a guy that can be a very effective NHL defenseman. Will he be a 1 or a 2? Maybe not. But even if he's a really good 3 or a 4, like, that's still something you can get excited about as a Blackhawks fan. And I think the more he plays down in Rockford, and he'll obviously go back once the team gets healthy, but over these next couple of years when if the cap doesn't increase and they try to add guys and guys need to get paid, you're going to need some of these cheaper defensemen. Maybe Mitchell is a guy that can come into a role, in a year or two full time and even maybe be as good as a 4. You never know. But it's going to be certainly something to watch. I think this year, though, he's going to continue to get better the more he plays, even if it's limited. But it'll be when he goes back down to Rockford and gets the 23 minutes a night that's really going to develop him further and benefit him for the long term.
He looks like he knows what he's doing right now, which is huge for me because sometimes you can just see it in a player's motions, in their eyes. He looks like he knows what he's doing on this call up. And I know it's only 2 games, but I'm excited to see what the future brings here. The immediate future, I mean, for Ian Mitchell.
I think for what you were saying there, Ron, just and for what it's worth, far more than I do about minor league hockey. I know you do all the stuff with the Wolves and the Ice Hogs, and you watch these games. I generally don't watch as much as you. So if I'm completely off base here, please let me know. But Ian Mitchell, for like the last few years, I feel like I was sold on Ian Mitchell coming up and being this impact guy. And I know defenders take a longer time to develop than forwards do. But if we're sitting here talking right now about Ian Mitchell, maybe being a number 4 guy, I feel like that's far off from what, as a Blackhawks fan, I was expecting Ian Mitchell to be. And I feel like we're once again in this situation where we've got another Blackhawks prospect that just doesn't live up to what you expected when they were drafted, signed, what have you. This is the biggest problem that I've had trying to continue, like, just as a fan of the team, just trying to continue to see where the success comes from post this cup run era. It's been packed with guys like Ian Mitchell that have so much promise, but then as they come into the league, the expectation and the posts just continue to get lower and lower and lower. It's like lowering the fucking basket so your 7-year-old can dunk. That's what I feel like every time I'm talking about one of these guys. When does this stop? When is it, Jesus fucking Christ, Ian Mitchell was supposed to be this number 1, number 2 guy, and now all of a sudden we're just happy with him being a number 4. I don't get it. How does that get fixed?
A new regime.
We're talking about the development with Kirby Dach, and now we're just lowering the bar for Ian Mitchell.
I really like that question, Tony. You said, how does it get fixed? It can start right now, immediately. We don't know how long Connor Murphy is going to be out with a concussion. We don't know right now. There's no timetable on it. It can start immediately, that ascension. What I saw in the last 2 games, I'm not saying he's going to be a next or he's going to be a top 1-2 guy on the back end for years to come. Just after watching those 2 games, he looks like he knows what the fuck he's doing. Whereas before, yeah, sure, he had some poise at certain times, but there was a lot more passivity in his game.
Mm-hmm.
He was very sure about what to do with the puck, and he had the speed. He has the legs. He's younger, be able to do it. Then a Connor Murphy, Jake McCabe, who have taken 18 million.
Didn't we sit on a podcast with Tab Bamford for a while, and he was talking about how Ian Mitchell could be like the next Duncan Keith guy for this Blackhawks defense? This was like a year or 2 ago.
We have. We've talked with Tab Abford and Barstool Chief. Both have sung high praises for Ian Mitchell. Yes, you're right.
Yes, I like at a certain point you have to call back to the office wherever you bought it from, the merchant, and be like, I want to return this because it stinks. If we're gonna deal with that one more time, I'm going to be very mad online because I feel like
I don't blame you.
I've got a bunch of goods that I was sold on that were going to be great,
right,
and they're just not working the way that they were marketed.
Right, and you're justified in having that mindset, Tony, and I think I'm right there with you too. But at the same time, as we know, defensemen take longer to develop here, and also look at kind of like the logjam that is there when you're talking about, oh, well, why isn't he a top 4 here? Well, A, the development, that's number one, like we just talked about, but two, I'm fine
if he's a 5'6". I'm fine if he's I'm fine if he's a 5'6" right now. But like, I want to see that arc, right? Like, I want to see that growth. I want to see some of that stuff.
So
you are correct. Him out there looking like he knows what he's doing is a huge step forward.
Is this the start of Ian Mitchell's arc here?
I hope it is. That's what I want. But I don't want to hear Ron move the goalposts for me. That's what I don't want. I want him to keep that bar where it's supposed to be. Don't lower the basket for him. Because we need that. We need it. If we're gonna be successful, we need that. We talked about like how to like get back into a Blackhawks team that's respectable for year over year. Well, when Seth Jones' contract looks real fucking bad, I want Ian Mitchell out there covering for his ass. They've got to cross planes at some point in time. Ian Mitchell needs to stay on that development path and get this right, because that's going to be a huge key. Or we could just trade him like Henry Jokiharju or Adam Boquist, and then we'll never hear of him again unless he shows up on highlights somewhere else. Because we can play that game too. Although Stan Bowman's not in charge anymore.
Ron, any final thoughts after that kind of evisceration there on Ian Mitchell? Because then we got some other kind of shit that's a little fun to talk about here afterwards. So go ahead.
Yeah, I think just Tony brings up a good point. You know, are we finally going to see the Blackhawks draft picks start to pan out? Like, are any of these guys truly what they were as advertised, right? Like you made a great analogy of, you know, you told me this was going to be so good and it hasn't been, you know, and we've seen that time and time again, you know, like it'll be nice to see them finally like develop a guy that was supposed to truly be this great thing, right? Because like we were all sold on Henrik Borgstrom like that. We were all sold on it, you know, every single like that top pick, you know, every year. And you know, it would be really nice to just see one work out. But I agree, you know, at least for now, if he's a good 5'6", but Tony's right. We need to see that development and growth, you know, over time from him, and not just this like plateau of where he's at right now.
Right. Good finishing point there, Ron. Let's move on to the next thing. And this is about cleaning house. And this is not specifically about the Blackhawks. We'll get to that point in a second. But Vancouver cleans house, firing coach, GM, multiple front office members. Philly just fired Alain Vigneault. Guys, I'm glad we made our changes earlier in the season. I know that there were other circumstances surrounding it that kind of brought about some of the other ones that were out there, but we all kind of knew head coach was on the way out, just given the way the team was performing, the response to him. We still have a shot. I talked about, 9.7% odds, whatever. And guess what? The Philadelphia Flyers are lower than us. The Vancouver Canucks were just very, very slightly above us, and that came from a few early on wins that they had to kind of supplement that they've been more of a downward slide since. How good is it to have some king shit in the air right now in Chicago?
King shit is just wonderful, Jonnie. It's been very refreshing, and it's nice seeing him just, you know, he's a fun coach, right? Like he's got that personality. You hear about the guys talk about how he's just a guy they want to play for. Like he's that good personality that I think this team needs, especially on a team with a lot of great personalities. You talked about Marc-Andre Fleury earlier. Seth Jones is a very fun guy, you know, good quote and things like that. Obviously, Kane is Kane, Cat is Cat. Like they're a little quieter, but they'll give you a good one-liner here and there. You know, this team's got some personality, and it's a lot of fun. And he feels like the guy that needs to be in charge. So I agree with you. I'm glad the Hawks did what they did when they did it, because doing it this late into the season now, it really feels like it's a wasted year for both of those teams, given how their start has gone.
I've just become such a fan of Derek King as a person, because this is almost like Scott Foster getting called into third string goalie. Like, come on up, and not in the same sense. Derek King was an NHL player. He was an AHL coach. He was the closest you can get to NHL coaching. But from a sense, I get the same storylines with Derek King that I had with that. This is your everyday guy right now. You know, he was far removed from his playing days. He was still coaching AHL hockey, but he's a real human. Like, when you get him in the press conferences, he's just a normal everyday dude who's just out there doing his job, and just like he's just the most sincere coach I've ever heard talk. Like, you even didn't really get that with Joel Quenneville. Like, there was always the coach speak. There was always, just this seasoned veteran professional coach thing. And then when you had Jeremy Colleton, you had a guy that was just always trying to like lead you off of his scent for whatever it was. And then you get Derek King, he's just authentic, 100% authentic guy who's there letting the boys play. He wears snazzy suits. I mean, this is like just the whole shtick to it is fantastic, because there is no shtick. It's just Derek King. I think that's the most that like I have so much respect for him, because he is just the most authentic human that I've seen in the coaching role, at least for the Blackhawks, in my entire lifetime. I want them to remove the interim and just make him the coach, because it just seems to work right now. And until there's problems, there's nothing to complain about. 8-4 in your first, stretch of being an NHL coach. That's good. That's really good. That's better than I can do. That's better than most people can do. And, even with a very talented Blackhawks roster, you saw the struggle that a guy like Jeremy Colleton, who's also been a coach for a long time, had with this group of people to put a win on the board. Derek King's done it 8 fucking times in 12 games.
Yeah. Derek King knows how to put a neutral zone structure together. So that's what I like. First of all, just X's and O's wise. And on the other end too, Donnie, I absolutely love the personable aspect of Derek King.
He's so easy to root for.
Exactly. You mentioned all that stuff. I love the suits too. Those are great. Some great looks from Derek King. Snazzy suits, sharp dressed men. But other than that, he looks like Walter White too. So let's cook. It's time to cook. Cook us up a run. We're ready to run. Let's go. On to the next topic here. We're talking trade rumors. Blackhawks open to trading moving Henrik Borgstrom per Frank Spaghetti and Meatballs. 1 goal, 1 assist, 15 games this year, 11-19 time on ice. Regardless of if he's staying or going, he just needs to shoot more. He's only got 16 shots on goal all year. Utilize that skill, get a few more on net. We'll see what happens there. He's still been a mainstay in the lineup when healthy. I know he had some COVID, non-COVID illness that kept him out for some games earlier in the year, but we'll leave it at that. Ron, let's get into you, because this one's all you. Should the Blackhawks explore a trade for Jake Debrusk?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting case, Jonnie, because, granted, there is no, Stan Bowman here anymore to make he's a first-round pick that needs a change of scenery take, because that's always been a trade that he loves to make. Now it really feels like, hey, maybe this is truly that trade to get him in a better situation. He's shown he plays well. He was really good his first couple of years with the Bruins, and then he's just kind of had the struggles the last 2 years. It kind of feels like Dylan Strome, but I feel like he was a little more established before Strome was. So maybe he is a guy, to me, he fits kind of that Brandon Hagel role, where he could be a really decent depth scorer and give some energy and provide that kind of flair to the team. And I think it's at least worth exploring. I think, in my article, I suggested a kind of like a Strome for DeBrusk trade. Obviously, there would need to be more. I realize I didn't necessarily quote that perfectly in my article, but there would be more involved. But why not have the trade centered around those two with, picks and maybe prospects moving in the other directions, and give these guys fresh changes of scenery. And maybe a guy like Jake Debrusk is what this team needs to, get on that run, Jonnie, that we are ready for, as this episode title states. So I think it's an interesting move. It's an interesting case. Do I think it's going to happen? I don't know how much Kyle Davidson's going to do when he still has the interim tag.
Yeah.
But it also feels like they're giving him an opportunity to make his case to be the GM. They've said that they're very like he'll be in one of the names that they're talking about when the season ends to bring in as a GM. This is his chance maybe to go get that guy and like show, hey, I can execute this well and make it a trade that favors the Blackhawks that we see, Steve Yzerman and all these other GMs do on a regular basis. Prove that you can be that. Maybe you're going to be the long-term guy here and not just the interim GM. So I think it's worth exploring, guys, because I think it's always fun to play what if with trades and free agencies. That's why you guys call me off-season Ron so much.
Yeah, you're off season, Ron. You're the GM of the Four Feathers pod crew here. My specialty is game day in-game stuff. You are GM up front, and Tony is the coach. So that's just how it goes. That's just how it goes. You're the coach. You're the king shit of this group. That's just how it goes, though. So that's why we did go and send that over to Ron there. Ron, I appreciate it. Quick figures here. Jake Debrusk, 6 foot, 188 loves. 25 years old, 4 goals, 3 assists, averaging 13.54 on the ice this year in 20 games. Just 1 goal in his last 6, 71 goals, 70 assists, 15-17 average time on ice in 264 career games. Tony, is that a guy that you would want to go get?
Sure. Why not? I'll throw him out there on the ice. If I'm the coach, that's definitely a guy that I'm looking for. Although, do you guys really want to move? Maybe Borgstrom. Like, do you want to move Strome? What's the goal here? I think we've got a comment in here.
That'd be Strome. That'd be Strome.
We've got a comment in here. Is the goal to still make the playoffs? Ron, you brought up a good point a little bit earlier. You brought up a good point with Dylan Strome.
Mm-hmm.
If he's a guy that you can get going, I mean, we've seen the chemistry with him and DeBrincat. Like, did something happen to that? Because is Dylan Strome a guy that, could figure it out at the face-off dot or something that can help you down the line, provide that additional scoring, that depth scoring that you need? I know if you're talking about a guy that, if you bring him in, he can also provide some of that value. But do you have to make a move for the sake of making a move here? I guess is the question that I'm asking.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way to look at it. And maybe the move isn't there to be made. Again, like you said, like what we mentioned earlier, can Dylan Strome be a guy that, starts to pick things up a little bit? I'm not saying needs to be that 51 and 58 games type player that he was when they first got him. But, even if he can get back to that kind of 40-point plateau, that's a nice place for a guy like Dylan Strome, who the Blackhawks didn't, really, I guess, quote unquote, use a draft pick on. But I think he's better value right now than Nick Schmaltz. And
weren't we at one point talking about Dylan Strome potentially playing himself out of Blackhawks affordability?
Yeah. Yes. I'm pretty sure we had that conversation.
I want that guy
once
back.
Or twice.
Yeah. I agree, Tony. I want him too. And there would be no need to make a move if you're starting to see that. And if this is the upswing. And also important to note, we just bring this up because Boston had healthy scratched him for a game, and it was reported then per Elliott via Darren that it was kind of in the works, nothing imminent, nothing on the horizon happening immediately, but the two sides have been working on a potential fresh start. So that's just important to note the context there per Elliott. But I just was throwing it out there because Ron wrote a nice article about it. You can check it out on tapsportsnet.com. We tweeted out from the Four Feathers pod account on Twitter. But just when it comes to Jake Debrusk, one thing I like about him, I will say, Tony, I agree. You don't make a move just for the sake of making a move. But to answer that question, yes, the goal is, for me, still making the playoffs based on the talent that's on the roster. When you have MAF in net and Seth Jones on the back end. You didn't bring those guys in just to fuck around in year one. But getting further, I like Jake Debrusk because he shoots the fucking puck, guys. 42 total shots on goal this year. He's only had 3 shotless games all season in the 20 that he's played. There's been way too much passivity amongst the Hawks forward core. I talked about Henrik Borgstrom about, why is he on the, block of, or why the Blackhawks open moving him? Because he's not shooting the fucking puck. So he's not even giving himself a chance to get on the score sheet. So
you guys have been at the UC more than I have, but are people still screaming for this team to shoot the puck?
No.
No,
which
no,
is
not
weird.
nearly as
Which
much.
is weird because people
are
used to
shooting
do that
buck-
all the time.
When you're
We're
when you're
talking
a
about
skill-
shooting the
yeah,
puck.
when you're a skill forward though, and you have your openings, you absolutely need to at least wire it on. Or if you see when your other forwards are setting up for a rebound opportunity, you absolutely need to get one in low. And then that pads your stat sheet so it looks better when we come on here in four feathers and fucking look at your hockey reference page and see you have, X amount of shots versus, other guys X amount of shots when it comes to, like, I'm comparing here, Henrik Borgstrom and Jake Debrusk, but I know they're players of a different ilk and different size and whatever, and different roles and different teams, but that's just one thing I look at when I look at Jake DeBrusk that is enticing to me. But I'm with you, Tony. You don't need to make a move just for the sake of making a move at this point in time. See where it fits, and hey, if you start getting that production from Dylan Strome since he's finally back in the lineup again, I'm fine with rolling with him too.
I feel like you were just talking to Alexander Nylander there. Shoot the puck.
Yeah. Well, that guy's got the skill to fucking score, but we don't get down that rabbit hole tonight. All right, let's look at what's on tap next, boys. We're about to round this thing out.
That's close.
We're about to round this thing out. We've already run about an hour and a half here, but we will close it down with what's on tap next. That's when our guy, Ron Luce, will be in the building Tuesday, December 7th. 7:30 p.m. puck drop on NBC Sports Chicago against the New York Rangers, who we just played Saturday night. Thursday, going out to Canada, Montreal, 6 p.m. puck drop, NBC Sports Chicago. That's Thursday the 9th. And Saturday, the 11th, Hockey Night in Canada. Tony, I heard Bob McKenzie will once again be out of partial retirement for Hockey Night in Canada Bender purposes on the 11th against Toronto Maple Leafs, 6 p.m. NBC Sports Chicago here in Chicago on the broadcast. Guys, this slate we'll jump on before Blackhawks come home and have a few more in between then. I think there may be a few other road games before that kind of all culminates, but we'll get there. But these are the next three that we're looking at here. My mind immediately goes to Hockey Night in Canada Saturday. You guys remember when we absolutely fucking whipped the Leafs' ass like 2 seasons ago on Hockey Night in Canada? In their place, Dominic Kublic batting a goal out of midair. Just insane stuff. That's what I'm looking forward to most here. But Ron, I know you'll be there, so hit us with some Thursday preview or Tuesday preview.
Yeah, I'm excited. First off, I've never seen the Rangers play live, so that's a new team I can kind of check on my list of teams witnessed at the UC. But it's always fun to see Panarin return. They're a good team, but the Hawks were like oddly in it without being in it. They only really had, they only really had one bad stretch when New York got the quick 2 goals to take the lead. Like that was where the momentum kind of shifted. Otherwise, they played overall a very good game on Saturday night. I actually got to watch that game in its entirety. But maybe they get some revenge on that home cooking on home ice. That kind of good rebound against the Islanders. Maybe they bring that momentum back in and they can really do something with it against the Rangers. So I'm excited to be there. I will be putting out this poll on Twitter, but I would like to hear your guys' thoughts, gentlemen. What jersey do you think I should wear to the game tomorrow night to rep our beautiful Blackhawks?
White Doc, you're trying to get him going. Got to support him.
I like it.
See, I feel like if we're going to events, we have to start to think about like what the intended purpose is, Ron. So here's my question to you. Who are you attending the game with? First, number one.
I'm attending the game with my good friend Paul.
Okay. So is Paul like a big drinking guy? Does he eat a lot of food? What give me some spiel on Paul.
This is good. This is fun. I like where you're going with this. This is actually very entertaining. Yeah, Paul likes to have a good time. He likes to, get down. We haven't seen each other in a while, so we're catching up for the first time, which will be cool. And it's going to be good energy. It's going to be a lot of fun.
So what jersey screams the boys are back in town to you then, if you haven't seen Paul in a while?
Oof.
I'm going with a red or a black jersey in this situation.
Yeah,
Johnny,
you probably
here's
are.
2 reasons.
Yeah.
If Paul's a big drinker, he's into eating the food, he wants to have a good time. You don't want to mess up that white jersey. That's what I'm saying.
That's a good point.
That's at least my take.
I'm feeling, it might have to be either a good old DeBrincat red night Or maybe we dive into the very oddities of my jersey closet and pull out something that hasn't seen the light of day in a while, and really just, maybe throw it back or, think about something. A jersey that's been staring at me every game I go into my closet to pick a jersey.
Brandon Saad jersey.
No, I wore that one on Blackhawks Friday. Don't worry, that one got its wear this year. But it's actually been my friend of the program, David Bolin jersey. So I'm thinking maybe
that
a
screams
red,
boys are back in town.
Yeah.
maybe some red Davy Bolin jersey.
I didn't even know that
might
you
be
had that in
used
your
tomorrow.
fucking arsenal.
Oh,
Holy
yeah.
shit.
That's a good one. It's a good one. I got a white Thomas Kopetsky
See,
jersey.
that's what I
that's a good
wanted
one too.
That's what I wanted to know. I mean, if you're getting after it on a what is this? A Tuesday night?
Going-
A Tuesday night. If you're getting after
going
it
up-
on a Tuesday night,
going
Dave
up on a
Bolin
Tuesday.
jersey,
Going up
100%.
on a Tuesday.
Dave Bolin, equal opportunity killer of Bud Lights, from what I know. Go with the Bolin jersey.
Yeah,
100%.
That's a good one.
We made it through that. Look at that
that
exercise.
That was good.
We
See,
worked it out.
That was a good exercise. I do enjoy that, guys. Other than that, the struggling Montreal Canadiens should be a win when we're talking about upcoming games here. So if they lose that one, I'm gonna be pissed. I'm gonna be pissed off. You can lose to the Rangers. I don't want them to. I want them to win, especially back on home ice. But they're a very good team. Toronto Maple Leafs also a wagon. So you got to win that Montreal game and take one of those other two. I'd be happy going 2-1 this stretch. Predictions. What do we think?
Yeah, I think 2-1 is very doable. I think that tomorrow's game is the biggest one. And I say that because it's the one at home. Like, you want to win on home ice. You want to take that momentum with you on the road again. I know there's a great quote that Derek King said about a good vibe after that road trip that just passed.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
you want that good vibe going into Canada, especially, a really beat up Montreal team that they can absolutely beat or in the first game. But then on Saturday, like, you want to bring your A game against one of the best teams in that Eastern Conference right now in the Toronto Maple Leafs, and you win on, Hockey Night in Canada on Saturday night. That might be a big turning point to Jonnie, like you said, get ready to run. Maybe this is where it happens.
Yeah, that might be jumping the first hurdle, Ron.
Yeah, it really could be.
Why do you have to fucking add hurdles to this thing?
Why not?
Look at
the
straight 300 meter sprint or something there, Jonnie. Like, you're adding hurdles to the whole thing, and now it's going to be really hard.
Yeah,
it's going to be a lot of effort.
Nani.
But they beat a really
hockey
good
season is typically always so easy.
It's super easy, man. Again, you know this. These guys are all machines.
And and think about it though. They beat a very good Washington Capitals team that currently leads the Metro. Why can't they go beat a good Rangers team on home ice? And why can't they go beat a good Maple Leafs team up in Canada?
I've watched some games around the league, and other teams, if you're able to jump early on some of these teams, and we weren't able to do it against the Oilers, they got the jump on us. Same with Toronto Maple Leafs. Sure, on most nights it's the Matthews, fucking Nylander, Tavares show, no problem. Same with out in Edmonton, Draisaitl, fucking McDavid, Puljujarvi, Zach Hyman posting his big ass in front of the net. You get out on them early and fucking pressure them, they can kind of collapse. And I've seen some games, like the Winnipeg Jets just beat the Maple Leafs like 6-3 the other night. And it's like, okay, the Maple Leafs are a much more skilled team. There's no fucking question about that. But the Winnipeg Jets is probably Mark Scheifele and Blake Wheeler, Andrew Kopp punishing them with some big hits, fucking parking their asses out in front of the net, being able to get in front of them. Guess what? I can see that. Remember Drake Caggiula
Attention, Kirby Doc.
Drake, yes, him, but Brandon Hagel too, because remember Drake Caggiula scored the opening goal from kind of like right around the goal line in that game on Hockey Night in Canada back in 2020, I guess. Yeah, 2019-20 season, so I think it was early 2020. If Brandon Hale can get that early goal and kind of set the tone, and the boys just buzz after that, maybe get a Kuble clapper in there, I think there's a chance for that win against the Maple Leafs in Toronto.
I want Patrick Kane to show up in that game. Like, I feel like there's a certain there's a certain point where, like, Patrick Kane is such a seasoned vet now that I feel like, and this is so unfair to say, that Patrick Kane probably goes through the motions
of playing hockey instead of getting up for big games that he, probably earlier on in his career were there's a little more of an adrenaline rush, right? Like, and I feel like for Patrick Kane, his somewhat pseudo rivalry with Austin Matthews could be a driver for a guy like Patrick Kane to show up in a hockey game and maybe go off for 2-3 goals.
If I remember correctly, my roster transactions, I'm picturing him in my head. Patrick Kane was out for the first game against the Maple Leafs due to COVID protocol.
I don't remember this. If he was, then that
Ron was he? I believe he was.
Factor.
You don't need to fact check it, but if you said you think it was too, I think that was the one game that he missed in there.
Pretty sure it probably was.
It was.
That's what I want. I want the Patrick Kane Austin Matthews like rivalry. I just want that. I want it because it's a factor for Patrick Kane to perform better than Austin Matthews. You need to give Patrick Kane something to play for. That's one thing right there. Be better than this guy. I want back and forth goal celebrations. I want cool memes to be made. I want Jonnie to have a great time running the Four Feathers podcast Twitter account during that game.
Right, and I was correct on that, Ron. I just looked up Patrick Kane's game logs. No TOR to be found.
I was looking at that as well and confirmed because they played them on the 27th and he was out. Last game he played was the 21st of October, so a week prior, and he didn't come back until the game on November 1st against Ottawa when he went off for the hat trick.
Yeah, correct. So
good research, guys.
Yeah, no, for sure. That was some good in podcast research here from Four Feathers here. I think we're all kind of, predicting a 2-1 stretch here, but let's fucking go 3-0. I'm ready to run, as this podcast title said. Let's go. That's what's on tap next. 3 games here against some pair of tough teams and a kind of cakewalk in the middle, but you got to make it that because you're also going up to Montreal, and I guarantee the Leafs the Canadians could be 0-81, and on game 82, the Bell Center would be packed and loud as shit, no matter what.
Yeah.
So
that's
just Jonnie, the way it goes up there.
Jonnie just enhanced you ready to run too. After those 2 games in Canada, they come home for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of their next 7 games are at home.
And I want to accentuate this. I know we've been on here a while, so anyone who's still tuned in here on the Four Feathers podcast, I appreciate you as we're approaching the hour 40 mark here. But when I'm talking about ready to run, the schedule was kind of broken up. They had like stretches of like 3 off days at one time. They had like another like 2 off days. They had another fucking holiday break like within times. You're getting into it's basically every other day. There's plenty of back-to-backs in here as well. You're basically playing every other day in December. If you're going to go on a run, keep that momentum rolling. There's something to be said for like I said earlier, you see when you just score a goal and you see the boys buzzing after that. Well, guess what? That can translate over game to game too when you get that momentum rolling. That's why you see things that are seemingly improbable, like a Blackhawks start in 2013 or a Blackhawks the St. Louis Blues going on their 11-game win streak to salvage the season and go on to win the cup. This is where this kind of shit starts. So if you can actually do that and be ready to run and do it on the ice, this could literally be a turning point in the season. So that's why I'm so excited for it.
It's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll. I'm not sure who said that. I'm not sure if it's in a song, but it seems like a good thing to say at this point in time.
We might have to check with Frank Spaghetti and Meatballs on that.
I'll check my sources.
Sounds good. All right, gentlemen, thank you guys for joining me. I'm Jonnie. That was Tony Marchese and Ron Luce alongside me here for season 3, episode 8, Ready to Run. Four Feathers podcast here. Thank you for locking it down with us. You know where to find us at Four Feathers Pod on social media and on Tap Sportsnet for all Chicago sports, literature, and podcasting needs. Make sure you're visiting ontapsportsnet.com. Click on the Blackhawks tab. You can find all news, analysis, updates that you need right there. Make sure you're visiting Vivid Seats as well. Looking to get out to the UC, go and see these kind of clustered games that we got coming up. I talked about feels like every other day, especially after they come back from that Canadian road trip. Go to Vivid Seats, spend over $100. You get $10 off your order if you use the code ONTAP. That's Vivid Seats, over $100 order. Get $10 off by using the code ONTAP. Guys, that wraps it up for tonight. Let's get one last word in and close her out.
Let's go Hawks.
Let's go Hawks.
Let's go Hawks.